All right, so you guys recall that last podcast we discussed that Seven Seas was localizing the otokonoko fetish as, oh, it's a trans character for I turned my best friend into a girl, or whatever that thing was titled.
Yeah.
So Western Localizer reveals that Seven Seas always intended to localize feminine males as transgender females, says translator, consulted trans people on changing character's identity.
Apparently, trans people are the arbiters of localization.
Yeah, it's
Apparently.
funny how you just consulted trans people and not the people who are gonna buy the.
Yeah,
fucking
they
manga.
didn't.
Go to Fujoshi's.
I'm so
Yeah, they
glad
come
you
on.
contacted all 5 people who were gonna.
They
buy
didn't
the
consult
manga.
otokonoko fetishists. So in the face, good.
Before you read this, I just want to like. They are the people that are like, you're misgendering me. Stop misgendering me.
Mhm.
And now they're saying, well, we're gonna purposely misgender this person, even though we know they're not trans, because they want to be like, woke or whatever.
Yeah, and I'll just say that what has effectively happened here is that the woke crowd, the left, they've overused the gay token to the point where like gay and especially bi, like those are meaningless now. We have a new thing. It's trans. That's that thing, so they're going to just throw you by the wayside and start parading their new thing, which is the trans community, right? So in this particular situation, this is catering to basically a trap fetish, right? The idea of this character here falls in love with his childhood male friend after forcing him to cross-dress and wear makeup, right? Like it is very clearly a specific gay thing, the trap fetish, not, oh, literally I turned my friend into a trans icon, right, or something. Anyway, so in the face of the massive backlash towards Seven Seas gender swapping the cross-dressing and feminine male Hyura into a transgender girl in their English language release of I Think I Turned My Childhood Friend into a Girl, a Western localizer, I bet you can't guess which one, has admitted that this blatant changing of mangaka Azusa Banjo's original work was planned from the start, asserting that the respective translator consulted, quote, with trans people to ensure the change was, quote, as accurate to their experience as possible. Which, again, you've went into the localization with the presupposition that the character is trans. Therefore, you only talked to trans people to make sure it's as accurate to their experiences as possible, when that's not the experience the character in the story is having.
And you'd think, like, talk to the fucking mangaka or the
Of course.
licensor. Like, why are you talking to random people on the internet about if this person if you should change the identity
Because
of the
they
person?
want an echo chamber.
Right.
Like, it's so dumb.
So this suspected intention was confirmed on June 8th when Western localizer Katrina Leonidakis, whose credits include the Higurashi When They Cried Go and Sotsu anime series, as well as the Atlas video game Persona 5 Royal, sought to speak out against the backlash to Seven Seas mistranslation. Talking to Twitter, Leonidakis declared, I know the translator, and they've done their homework on this series, reading future volumes, consulting with trans people, and working hard to make sure it's as accurate as possible. Shame on those listening to one rando and thrashing it, she added, referring to the manga fan translator Ethylene Scans, who first brought Seven Seas shoddy work to light. Quote, I fully support this translator.
Yeah. Instead of go scroll up again. Instead of listening to one rando and trashing it, listen to one rando and accept the translation experience, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, it's so demeaning because it, like, we don't need Ethylene Scans take on it to recognize what they've done and that it was a misstep, right? I know tweeting this is going to draw the Twitter mob towards me, but that's fine. Hold on real quick. Luigi the Metal 64 says, the artist is the one who makes the series. It is too late for 7 Seas. They're already exposed for going against what the artist made. Well, hang on to your hats, because the following article is 7 Seas response to backlash, says they are looking into addressing the delicate language used in the intentional mistranslation of I think I turned my childhood friend into a girl. So that is something we'll be talking about in just a minute. And I'll remind you that previously they were called out on localization stuff and reprinted the books correcting the issue. So it is not too late for 7 Seas yet. Although we get to cover even more 7 Seas news immediately after that. So let's see. Quote, I know tweeting this is going to draw the Twitter mob towards me, but that's fine, she continued, before continuing to insult ethylene scans. Quote, they can point to the one scan guy's analysis of the first volume all they want. It's clearly the same anti-localization stuff as always, just co-opted differently. Once again, it's like, imagine this is your worldview. Everybody's against me as a localizer. The world hates localizers. It's just a group of randos on the internet who just hate localizers. They hate my job, even though I do it damn good. It's like, no, it's not that. It's not. You've misunderstood 100% of what's happening here. Right?
That would be like me saying, "Oh, they just hate our podcast because they hate podcasters. It's not us."
Nobody hates.
I always got to do mental gymnastics to
exactly,
justify their, their existence, basically. Like, oh no, we're not the problems. It's all these other people. They're the problem. Yeah. It's not us. It's not what we're doing that's pissing people off. It's the trolls. It's the bots. It's Putin. It's always Putin's fault. I'm sure he had something to do with criticizing the localizers because he's anti-trans.
Well, no, it's because he's the ringleader of the Russian bots that she battles on a daily basis, right?
They just refuse to accept responsibility. Is all.
She then attempted to head off any criticism of her claims by deflecting, quote, and I know I'm not offering my own full essay about why it's good, and not giving examples in context is going to stir shit up too. But I know that even if I did, it wouldn't change anyone's minds, she said. That's how stuff on the Bird site works, referring to Twitter, of course. Leonidakis goes on to say, quote, and I know this is just a very small subset of fans who are very loud and that the rest of the community isn't like this, but it still disappoints me that so much of the community doesn't realize how hard we work to make sure everything is handled with care. We love what we do. Okay, I will remind you again. The fans of this series have a trap fetish. They like it because it is a taboo thing that sexually excites them about a character who was straight, cross-dressing, and the guy who did it to him falling for the character. It is straight bait. They like it for that reason. You are perverting it into, woke thing of the week, in this case the trans community, again, because previously when it was a gay thing, that once upon a time you'd have been all over celebrating that, but now that trans is a thing, it's like you got to throw that by the wayside because that's the new hot ticket thing. So it's not a very small subset of fans. I'll just be clear. I am not a fan of this. I've never read it. I do not care about this particular property.
Same. I think most
and
of us
I
on the
certainly
podcast
do not have this weird trap fetish thing. But
I
am acknowledging that the reason people like this is because it is a very specific subset of like yaoi that people are into. And so it's not a very small subset of fans. It's literally the entirety of the fan base. The people who like it for that reason. and you're just dismissing them outright because you
For your
know
own
better,
validation,
according
yeah,
to
it's
yourself.
Well, I mean, this is the person that, you know, the brother or little brother or whatever the fuck word
Yeah,
that she did. Like,
the legacy,
yeah,
Nini. Yeah,
she said she learned her lesson that about the legacy terms and shit. Clearly, no. Clearly, she still thinks no. As translator, I'm right. Who gives a shit what the original intent said? Who gives a shit what the fans think? This is the way I'm doing it, and tough shit. Well,
clearly the Seven Seas person was a translator.
That's a good one. But
I mean, hopefully these people all just get fired. And that's the remedy, right? Like,
honestly, look,
that would be
Seven
nice.
Seas.
That would
Seven
honestly
Seas.
be nice.
Look at how many times you've had to correct course on this. It's not a bad suggestion. And look, nobody here is anti-trans. Nobody here, well, I don't know. I shouldn't speak for Dan. I don't know. I should only speak for myself. I'm not anti-trans. If you want to, do whatever you want, I do not care. It's not about that. It's about inserting it where it wasn't, right? And as Luigi the Metal 64 says, what they changed is like saying kabuki theater actors are transsexual. Yes. I actually made that exact same statement previously when we were talking about this. I don't know if it was on the last podcast or behind the scenes when we were prepping for this one, but in kabuki, all the actors are male, right? It's like traditional Greek plays where the male actors played female characters because only men played in those plays, right? So in kabuki theater, same thing. Again, like I said, they only men are in kabuki theater. So that is like claiming that the male character, the male actor playing the female character is trans because they're playing a female character in it, right? That's effectively, it's not that big of a leap from what they're sort of doing here, is taking a character who's cross-dressing and saying, yes, he's cross-dressing. He is a girl. He's a trans woman now, and he goes on to say that is so wrong. Like saying all Asians know karate. Well, only the
I
Japanese.
pictured these types of people, in excruciating pain. Like if, for example, in Kashimashi, how it's like he eventually becomes female or whatever because of the alien ship crashing. Like
spoiler.
That's literally episode 1. But
double if you want to watch it.
I imagine these types of people. Well, the dub's safe, but I imagine the type of people like
can you imagine?
Their skin is crawling when they type in like, oh, the he him before he's trans.
I gotta know how do they what pronoun do they use for Ranma in the sub?
Well, the thing is, like, the characters that don't know it's the same guy, they just call it a she when he's in his female form.
Yeah, but like, do you think that they're like the localizers are super careful and they're like, translators note, this person is a bigot and is incorrectly referring to, or what? I mean, I just can't imagine.
I don't think they're that blatant yet. But I imagine. I think they would they want to. I bet you they want to add.
It's going to be so funny. You know how what's her name? J.K. Rowling is a trans exclusionary radical feminist. Wouldn't it be hilarious if, like, everything that's happened with J.K. Rowling, eventually it comes out that Rumiko Takahashi is the next target? Oh, she's a TERF, right?
Yeah, because the new Ranma, they didn't what is it? Say she's trans or whatever. But I feel like the progressives want to take it to a point where something like Kashimashi, like, while he's male, they'd call she her, like, off the bat because it's respectful.
So I haven't watched Kashimashi, but does the voice actor change?
Yeah, it.
Okay, so when the character is talking,
I don't know. Maybe the idea is that it's a female voice when he's female.
Sorry.
I don't know if it had a male voice initially.
So my question is, if again, I haven't watched the show, but if the character has any internal monologuing, I would assume that the character would have a masculine voice, the original voice before the transition thing in the internal monologue.
It's possible it's one of those teenagers that had a female voice actor anyway.
If that occurs even once in the entire show, then I think I would continue, because I'm sorry, I haven't bridged the gap between what I'm thinking about and what we're talking about here. But one of the things specifically about Kashimashi is when Discotek re-released it, they were patting themselves on the back over the fact that they corrected the pronouns.
Yeah,
and it's like, if the character is still displayed as masculine on the inside, right? The original voice of the male character before the magic is done to make them a woman, then I would argue that the character inside the body of the woman is still male, which therefore, because this is the thing, is like in the real world, you have the I was born in the wrong body idea, right? But in the case of this story, you have the character born in the right body magically transferred into the wrong body, therefore they should still be seen as masculine, right, as the male gender in their internal monologue and pronouncing.
So that's what led me to the question of like when they say, "Oh, we corrected the pronouns," is like, did they ahead of time while he's male go she her?
Oh, okay,
I don't think that's
the question. Is that what they did? God, that is so stupid.
I don't think they did. Why I think they did.
See, because I was going to say that there's no reason for them to have corrected the pronouns, because I mean, again, I haven't watched the show, but I imagine that all the female characters
probably was is there. So there's like a group of 3 or whatever, including the main character, and the other 2 girls probably referred to him as he, even though
they know.
Well, that's the idea.
Male before
they associate. I'm pretty sure they knew, and they were like orienting the character on how to be a girl.
Because the thing about the pronoun issue is that the perspective
they know
of the
him
people
as a male,
who know him
so that's
as a
why
male
they'd
would
be in the
continue
habit
to refer to him through masculine pronouns, and the characters who meet him as a female and don't know would naturally refer to him as female. The same way that a person that is trans, Ben Shapiro talks about the fact that that when you refer to somebody with pronouns, you're not actually referring to them to somebody else, right? So, for example, he gives an example of having dinner with Blair White, who's trans conservative, right? He would say, if I was in a restaurant and I was asking, where I'm supposed to be seated because I'm supposed to be meeting Blair, I would use the feminine pronouns because Blair looks feminine, right? And so you would use the pronoun to communicate to the person you're communicating with who you're trying to get to. But then you've got the people who don't do anything to change their outward appearance other than maybe like put on lipstick, but everything else about them is still presenting masculine. In that case, you're not going to refer to them in dainty female language when you're trying to find them using their pronoun to locate them, right? When you're talking to somebody else, hey, have you seen such and such person, right? Have you seen whatever? Anyway, so I'm feeling like I'm actually really interested now to find out what the pronoun changing was between the Media Blasters release and the Discotek release, because I can't picture a scenario where them changing it isn't I can't picture the scenario at all, actually.
What is it? Making the narrative kind of weird. Like they'll suddenly be like, where is she going? Even though, they're still disoriented on like accepting who. Like
it actually makes it more confusing if you decide to switch the pronoun on the character to be male across the board, for example, because he actually is in this case a man in the wrong body, right? Because it makes it seem like every other person who shouldn't know that he's male knows that he's male because you changed it. And doing it the other way, where you make him female from the beginning, gives away the plot change, like the actual plot event of him becoming female at the beginning. It's like there's no way to do this without ruining it.
Yeah, but obviously, I don't think that's the
I don't know.
extreme case.
Again,
I don't think they're doing that.
We've
I would be
gotten
shocked
really
if they
off
did.
topic of the specific thing here in order to talk about Kashimashi Girl Meets Girl or whatever they called it. But I
Yep.
just it seems like I'm legitimately curious now about what the
I just
change
watched
was.
like the dub with the subtitle, the disco subs on, because
Mhm.
that's
Do you
what
have
it
the
is.
disco suck one?
I don't.
I have
know
the
about
Media
Brett.
Blaster set in storage unit, but
Hmm.
anyway, so again, she said, I know it's just a very small subset of fans who are very loud, and that the rest of the community isn't like this, but it still disappoints me that so much of the community doesn't realize how hard we work to make sure everything's handled with care. We love what we do. This is where Katrina proceeds to shame critics of the well-researched localization of transing a feminine cross-dressing boy into a transgender girl, clout-chasing TERFs and transphobes. Oh, dear God. Okay, so he says, quote, writing off what was an extremely complex and well-researched localization decision as transing a character for no reason is absolutely ridiculous and is 100% something TERFs and the right would write for some bird site clout, she wrote. Nice misspelling of wrote, guys. So look, what clout are you going to get on Twitter by saying this? I always find it funny that the right believes there is a left-wing media bias, and occasionally I read the most absurd conspiracy theory tweets from left-wing friends who talk about the right-wing media bias, right? Or like basically like everything is awful on Twitter for people on the right who are constantly shadow banned and stuff, and then you got the left who's like, man, this place is filled with the right, like. I always get a kick out of that. That everybody just views the world as whatever you are, everybody else is not that because it's awful, and you're just actually dealing with assholes on either side or no political affiliation, but you just have to ascribe their thing against you because you're a tribalist. Anyway, so before proceeding to do her best MCU Sam Wilson impressions, shame on you, be better, cringe. Anyways, I have all my notifications turned off, B have block party installed, and C have reply filtering. So yell at me all you want. I'm not engaging with y'all on this. She concluded her thread. So block party must be the blockchain. And I'm curious now if because I specifically started following her today, if I'm now blocked. That's gonna be that's sure gonna be fun. Not that it matters, but okay, good. So I guess I'm not following any of the specific people in her blockchain that would cause me to lose the supreme privilege of getting to follow her every word. So, however, though Leonidakis framed criticism of the mistranslation as coming from only a very small subset of fans who were running with a false narrative based on a single fan translation, Seven Seas' work subsequently also found itself under scrutiny from other localizers. Later that same day, Japanese literary translator Emily Bellistrieri, who not only has provided his services. Okay, now I don't even know what to think anymore. Are we now misgendering? Is this a I just don't even know. Who has not only provided his services on such series as Overlord and the Saga of Tawny the Evil, but is a transgender man themselves. Okay, I don't even know what's going on here. Did they dead name the person? Are they refusing to see? The language is so confusing because is transgender man mean it's a woman becoming a man?
Yes.
I don't even know anymore. Tweeted, quote, the more I think I turned my childhood friend into a girl, the more annoyed I am. Quote, I talked to a Japanese friend about it, he recalled. They said, this is not a trans story. It's a manga for getting butterflies, Moe Kyunsuru, about otokonoko boys love. Trap gay sex. Right. Ballastieri further noted that said friend also shared with them the concept of an otokonoko, a boy that is like a girl, with they explain, quote, maybe which they explain has less to do with the character themselves enjoying women's clothing than to do with the view of the reader / creator. Okay, so it has less to do with the character enjoying women's clothing than it does with the view of the reader / creator. Okay, so it was a concept created to be enjoyed by the reader / creator, he continued, completely separate from guys who cross-dress or trans women. Right, it is a fetish. It is a fetishization of things. An otokonoko might be trans if the creator decides they are, but otherwise they aren't, Balassieri said. Quote, I'm using they here to not default to he, but it could easily be he. Sharing his friend's wish that they, quote, would like for people to understand Japanese culture before translating it. Yes, please. This is, again, going back to last podcast, like, oh, forgive me, sensei. I meant no harm. I truly understand kawaii culture. I'm part of Harajuku myself and have done the knees inwards thing for pictures. All right. So yeah, I think at Go Manga needs to figure out what happened and clearly things with the creator and errors and error. It just needs to be fixed. Nobody needs to be canceled. Is Go Manga 7 C's?
Yeah. That's
Is
their,
it really?
That's their Twitter handle.
Wow, cringe.
Or, I remember it was at one time.
It is. I just checked. Yeah. Likewise, Nikkei Asia Japanese translator Gad Onyenneho, that's a name. Onions are like ogres. Anyway, disagreed with Leonidakis' take, retweeting Ethlyn Scan's sharing of the initial comparison report. Onyenneho posited, quote, so there is yet another fans versus localization dust up over this new manga. I think I turned my childhood friend into a girl. And frankly, I think I'm inclined to side with the critics on this one, especially with the points brought up by this review. The issue basically boils down to this. A main character, Hyura, wears girls' clothes, but he explicitly says he's male. But the translation has Hyura's love interest, Mido, refer to Hyura using feminine pronouns. That creates inconsistencies as illustrated in this page. And the ironic thing here as well is that once again, we have taken the fact that yaoi boys love stuff is extremely predatory, where the top character, the more dominant character, forces the subservient, submissive character into things. Like that. Remember, Dan, when we saw Yuri on Ice, and Duo was talking about how if you looked at this, where Victor, the more dominant character, was male, and Yuri, the more submissive character, was female, everybody would be blowing a rape whistle over how extremely predatory it was, right? So in this situation, as per the usual, you've got the gay-ish story. The boys love a Tokonoko story happening here, where he is literally forcing his childhood friend to cross-dress and all these things. And now you're taking it a step further by like basically telling him, no, you're a girl. Like he's forcing the transition on him, right? And you're making the trans community look even worse, right? This is such a bad take. I cannot believe that they like 7C should have just steered clear of even licensing this. He then noted, quote, reading through the volume, it looks like Mido uses masculine pronouns for Hyura when Hyura presents as a male, and feminine pronouns when Hyura presents as a female, in both internal and external dialogue.
I think we've already covered like the details. It's just kind of an update, a follow-up.
I just want to know what this particular localizer or translator for Nikkei Asia was saying. I suppose this might be waved off as some kind of characterization device for Mido, though I don't see that sort of thought switching in the Japanese version. Well, I don't know that there is a lot of pronouncing in Japanese. Other characters randomly jump between using feminine and masculine pronouns when referring to Hyura as well. So that's the localization. But the kicker is that the dialogue that is clearly supposed to be that of all-knowing narrator uses feminine pronouns to describe Hira when the author of the manga clearly just identifies Hira as a male. That doesn't sit well with me, and you can understand how it really does not sit well with others, the translator opined. The reviewer from Ethylene Scans was very fairly brought up why such translation choices are problematic. I found the review to be thorough, evidence-based, nuanced, and level-headed. He praised Ethylene Scan's work. He said in it as a praise of their work. Quote, of course, with the Twitter being the Twitter, I hate the way all leftists refer to Twitter. The bird site, the Twitter. Some are weaponizing the review to call for the localizer's head, which of course no reasonable people would want. But there is also room for discussion regarding how to handle the translation. It's not fair for professional translators to automatically dismiss the issues brought up by a blog post as something ginned up by someone with a toxic agenda. Making an initial attempt to draw this thread to an end, he then affirmed, quote, I'll just close by saying I do not know everything about this issue. These are initial thoughts based on what I've seen in both the 75 version and the original Japanese manga. Oh, 7S, 7Cs. Okay, 75. I might have gotten things wrong, blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, returning to the one last thought, he said, okay, postscript. People have brought up this page that comes up further along in the series. Here, Hira clearly does not see himself as female, so it's not really uncalled for to use feminine pronouns with him. No, so it is really uncalled for to use feminine pronouns with him. Because he specifically says, I am a guy. Anyway. He would later engage Leonidakis personally in response to a thread started by visual novel localization company Love Lab CEO Meru in regards to the controversy. Consistently amazed at, number one, how quick people... So this is what Meru said. I'm consistently amazed at one, how quick people are to believe things they see online and how fast the game of telephone develops. Two, how quick people are to assume malice and agenda pushing rather than the usually far more banal reasons behind translation choices. This tweet would draw a now deleted response from Twitter user Vinct Quarte, whoever that is, who attempted to argue against the claims that, as she summarized, the character who is saying she feels better dressed as a girl and that she finally found the real her is obviously a guy because she uses boku, and I've read somewhere it's a masculine pronoun. I'm so sick of it, they declared. Open your eyes. She can't be more trans than that. Yikes. Again, how dismissive is that to say that just because they use boku? Like to say that the people making this argument are saying it's strictly because the character uses boku, which I would argue, and I haven't read the Japanese version, but I very much doubt that they do in the thing. Anyway,
what can we go back and reread
Sure.
this person's tweet here?
So the person said they chimed in to this thing, which said, "I can't believe how quick people are to find things online." And how fast the game of telephone, right? And the agenda pushing rather than banal reasons, right? So they're in this thread. This person came in with their own take just to pile on and said, quote, that character who is saying she feels better dressed as a girl and that she finally found the real her is obviously a guy because she uses boku. And I've read somewhere it's a masculine pronoun, right? So saying that a person would say that like, oh, they're ignoring all of the evidence that she's trans because she uses boku, right?
No, I think my head is like, because of the pronouns, my head is like exploding with this sentence. But I think that they're mocking someone who says that a girl is obviously trans and should be a man because they use boku.
No, what they're trying to do is they're making
that
a straw
character
man.
Who is saying she's obvious or she feels better dressed as a girl, and that she finally found the real
I'm pretty
her.
sure that this person used the wrong pronouns in the situation of mockingly saying what somebody else would say because they're too afraid to get the Twitter mob after them over using the pronouns that don't suggest that the character is trans. So I will read it using the opposite pronouns because I'm pretty sure this is the mocking tone they're trying to make. that character who is saying he feels better dressed as a girl and that he finally found found the real him is obviously a guy because he uses boku. And I've read somewhere that that's a masculine pronoun. Basically what they're saying is they're trying to mock people who don't actually speak Japanese, but just heard that, oh, boku's masculine, therefore, right? But that's not even it's a straw man that doesn't even address the real issues brought up as to why people are making the argument that they're making.
But then the second sentence is, I'm so sick of it. Open your eyes. She can't be more trans than that.
Yes.
And that's not in quotes.
That's not in quotes because
so
they're telling you.
This person's agreeing with the fact that if you use boku, you're trans?
No. This person is saying that because the character feels better dressed as a girl and that they finally found the real her, they're saying that character is trans. It can't be more trans than that. And they're just saying that because possibly in the manga the character uses boku, that I would imagine that that, like, first of all, boku isn't strictly male. Doesn't mean like you're saying I, but from the perspective of the male, like you would for a pronoun, right? It's not what it is. It is just more commonly used by men, and it is seen as a more masculine thing because it is more commonly used by men. Yeah. It is not to say that the word him, he, him, for example, is more commonly used by men, right? No, it's not the same thing. There is a binary between he and she that there isn't between boku and watashi.
Okay, as long like, well, I should say we're clear on that. I'm still confused as to what this person's saying, but it's clearly
they later deleted their tweet because they created the same confusion that you're experiencing, the fact that they still use the wrong pronouns for their mocking tone because they were too afraid to use the pronouns necessary to bring their point across properly. So anyway, Onyaneho would join in the conversation, replying to that person and say, I'll give the original critic their due for the fact that they did bring receipts. The character in question does declare that he is male in multiple parts of the series. What's bad is the bad faith pile-on against the translator, though. I haven't seen that anywhere. I don't know what they're talking about.
One, any pile-on onto the translator, I mean, if it gets to a harassing level, sure, that's bad. But just like piling on and saying, yes, you're a dumb translator who puts their dumb opinions in my manga.
Yeah.
Like, you did something bad, you get called out for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, at a certain point, enough's enough. Obviously, in a year, no one gives a shit.
More people are going to keep piling on for it.
Yeah, so in a year, no one should be complaining about this anymore, obviously, right? Because at a certain point, we get it. We don't need to complain about it anymore. Right. But if they keep doing it, then you need to get fired because you clearly don't give a shit about translating what's there. You want to insert your own crap.
Right, and again, Katrina Leonidakis isn't even the translator for it. They're just inserting themselves into this because people have this tendency of they get the tiniest pushback and they immediately get into this tribal mode of I need to go to battle for my tribe.
Us translators need to stick
together. Yeah, it's just like they get into this absurd mindset. So making her own respective entrance, Leonidakis would attempt to defend the mistranslation on the grounds that the translator behind the official translation has done loads of research into the character and series and made decision based upon that. I love this. So the translator talked to a bunch of trans people. Did you stop and talk to the creator, as we said? Did you stop to look at the actual contents where the character repeatedly refers to themselves as male? Again, the fetish here, the kink here is the trap. This is like what we talked about, like with Footnum likes the reverse trap character, and one of your favorite series is Mayochiki.
Let's make a clear distinction. I'm not sitting here thinking, man, that is hot, man. I want them to smash while wearing the butler gear. No!
Okay, but let me ask you, what's the name of the character in Mayochiki again? Subaru? Would Subaru still be your waifu if Subaru were trans male.
No.
Wait, so you like
that would be a male
tomboys?
character. I'm not into male characters.
You
Would
like
Subaru
tomboys?
be
Is that
your
what you're saying?
husbando?
No.
Okay, but so I just want you
Yeah.
like tomboys.
Yes.
That's
That
your
is
thing?
what's going on.
That's what you mean by
here.
reverse traps.
Well, reverse trap meaning that female characters who dress in masculine clothing.
Yeah.
Here, I'll bring up my Ochiki real quick. Of course, I will spend another.
I think it's a really interesting plot device to use, and it's also kind of like, whoa, that's a surprise. And I
Okay.
think it makes the character's femininity actually shine through the masculine clothes, I guess you could say.
So Oron Host Club.
I don't think she's okay. So Oron, she looks a bit too masculine to have the charm.
So Oron, that's different. Or the purpose of Oron, that you're crossing the fetish just simply because the character's cross-dressed. See, that's not a reverse trap. That's dumpy middle-aged white middle-aged woman at high school age. Like that's like 30 going on 17 or whatever you want to call it. Like that's a whole different trope happening here. Also, Oron sucks. Hated that show. So anyway, this is
I liked it.
This is the Mayo Chiki cast. Is they're twins? Is that what it is? Are they twins?
No,
they
that's the
just
same
sisters?
character. They're
Is
just
it the
showing
same
both,
character?
They're showing both halves of the same coin right there. That's the.
Doesn't she have a
dress in
sister
her-
though?
No, that was in the show. That was the cover. They're like, this is her cousin Punyaru when she's wearing female
Right.
clothes.
Oh, it's so stupid. Oh god, the plot was so dumb. So so FDM again is saying that the feminine form, which this is the thing, and I said this back then during our watch club, women can pull off wearing men's clothing and still be hot. Men cannot pull off wearing women's clothing and still be hot.
Like
Okay.
women can wear a button-up flannel shirt.
Unless
with
they're
the
from
sexiest
Thailand.
thing
Very
you've ever
few
seen.
men. like they have to be very effeminate and very have very feminine features if they want to pull it off.
No. You have missed the boat entirely. Let me say this again. Women can wear men's clothing and still be sexy women. Men cannot wear women's clothing and still be sexy men. So you can throw your little ladyboy Thailand comment in there, but you've grossly missed the point of the statement.
You didn't say it. Like that's not how you phrased it originally. So
Anyway, all right. So she said, so again, they did so much research. They made their decision based upon talking to a bunch of trans people. The original critics' receipts pale in comparison. Right, they pale in comparison to the fact that they talked to a couple trans people because they went into it with an improper assumption on what the story was and decided to just keep running with it. The thrilling conclusion to this thread. Katrina Leonidakis says, well, guess what? Receipts don't matter because talk to the trans folks effectively. And then Ged Onyeneho shut that down shut down this disingenuous appraisal of Ethelyn Scan's work, informing Leonidakis, quote, just bought both the English and Japanese version of the first volume, and reading through them, I'm afraid the localization choices in question do not make sense. I won't blame the translator, though, because I won't pretend to know how editing processes went. I love how these people are like, well, I'm going to own you with this, but also I'm going to protect
They're like the
myself
only
from...
people who know Japanese and English.
I love it how people always do this thing where they shelf their criticism. It's basically a mic drop, but they right
put a pillow
the mic,
before they drop it.
Exactly, right before the mic hits the ground, they put a pillow, right? Or they have it tied to their wrist like a yo-yo, in case they actually weren't done talking. Kind of. Anyway,
and that's the last thing I'll say for now.
Yeah, it's like
Until
when
you reply.
when you say goodbye to somebody and then you end up walking the same direction to your parked cars. All right, so let's see what happened after Katrina Leonidakis invested herself into this whole thing. Seven Seas responded to the backlash, saying they're going to look into. Now, look, this isn't actually a great promise compared to the previous one where they did Mushoku Tensei and what was the other one? High School of the Elite. I think it was
Classroom of
the Elite. Yeah. So this isn't a very promising response here. They are looking into addressing the delicate language, right? So I hope you fire the ass of the person whose ideology was so hell bent on determining how they were going to translate it, and instead hire somebody who literally just does a translation and maybe.
I mean, it is a pretty costly mistake.
It is. So, in the latest update to the saga of Seven Seas, intentional translation of a feminine cross-dressing male as a transgender female in their localization of "I Think I Turned My Childhood Friend into a Girl," following widespread backlash from even the series mangaka herself. The English language publisher has promised fans that they are, quote, looking into addressing the delicate language used in the altering of Azusa Banjo's original work. The backlash against of the yaoi manga, we're going to call it that now, began near immediately after fan translator Ethylene Scans, right? This is all backstory we've already covered. A few Western localizers, Christina Leonidakis, blah, blah, blah. So they came in the stuff we just read. Following these discoveries and revelations was a storm of outspoken debate between supporters of the change who believed it was both a necessary step forward in trans representation and the true intent of Banjo's story, and opponents who conversely asserted that it was actually a blatant critical gender theory-based failing of the translator's job. Ultimately, the latter reached out to Banjo directly to inform her of the extreme alterations made by Seven Seas to her work, which in turn resulted in the mangaka directing those who have comments about translations to voice their complaints directly to the series' Japanese publisher, Ichi Jinsha Inc.
That's something good.
Likewise, the official Ichi Jinsha Inc. Twitter account would invite aggrieved readers to please contact us via DM or contact us below, as well as to, quote, please refrain from contacting the author directly. Basically, they're saying, hey, our author needs to write. They're on a tight deadline. Please leave them alone. We will field all of your complaints. Subsequently, on June 10th, Seven Seas officially Twitter. Good job. Official Twitter account finally offered the publisher's first comments on the debacle, though it did little to actually address any of the complaints. Quote, to those reaching out about "I Think I Turned My Childhood Friend into a Girl," we've heard your feedback and are looking into addressing the delicate language in this story. We thank you for your passion and patience. So, Seven Seas only has one possible course of action to not get burned to the ground. They have to release 2 versions of this.
Reprint volume 1.
No, because can you imagine the backlash of the trans community who didn't read this to begin with? If you were to go back on this now,
and let's be real, they probably won't read it. Like this is
but I'm just saying, but just the news of that trans representation we got by hijacking another story, we're losing it. They would just go crazy over it. Mm-hmm. And so Seven Seas, literally the only good option is to release 2 versions of it, and even still,
you mean side by side?
That's a bad outcome, right? It's so fucking funny. They've released speech bubble stickers, so you can put at the back of the book, they print it with a speech bubble sticker that you stick over the speech bubble, die cut to it to replace just the pronouns.
No, I think they would need to print it with the stickers already on, and then it's, if you want, you can peel the stickers off. You have to take them off
and just ruin the pages.
Yeah, peel the stickers off and reveal the accurate translation.
That's dumb.
It's like they print them from now on with the technology they do for the lotto scratchers. Yes, exactly. So they sell it with a special coin. Further, it appears further changes will be made to the localization scripts for the series' future releases, as Seven Seas also delayed the publication of the second volume of I Think I Turned My Childhood Friend into a Girl without a public announcement. This is a title that I really wish had one of those short form Japanese titles that was only 3 syllables. Originally scheduled to drop on September 13th, the volume now holds an updated release date of February 21st, 2023.
So I'm betting they're going to reprint Volume 1 and just keep with the true translation.
That's what they did with Mushoku Tensei and Classroom of the Elite.
Which means you should get Volume 1 of this for that limited trans.
You kind of should, actually. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. With Classroom of the Elite and Mushoku Tensei, the thing that they did poorly there was not the same thing. It wasn't a trans issue, which is a stack of dynamite in this current climate for them to be messing around with. I think with Classroom of the Elite, there were just portions of the translation that were toned down and entire sections were removed. If I recall what we covered there correctly. So
same with Mushoku Tensei.
Yeah.